Welcome back. Before the break, we were discussing what makes a good and healthy gut. There are, after all, trillions of microbial cells, primarily bacteria in the gut microbiome, which you were mentioning, some causing disease, some beneficial. So to the extent that we can influence this, that could have a big impact on our lives. I ask this question because a person can't own all of their problems.
Yeah.
Some things are innate.
Yeah.
And so to what extent is diet changing our microbiome?
I think it's a big impact, the sugar, the processed foods, and you accumulate that with some stress or some other factors. And then what ends up happening is the gut lining starts to break down, has like tiny holes around the gut, and then it starts to leak out toxins. So, I mean, it really is what we eat, right, is an important part of trying to maintain a healthy gut.
Many people say the secret to longevity is in our genes, though. What plays a bigger role, diet or genetics?
You know, I think it's really comfortable and palatable to use diet as something within our control to be able to change. But I think we're stepping into dangerous grounds and inferring a lot of things. Like, you know, in terms of your comments about the gut getting holes and leaking out, as someone whose job is to stick a camera in your gut, a hole is a catastrophe. So there are theories about tight junctions at a molecular level that, when disrupted, can lead to diseases like Crohn's or colitis, but those are really diagnosable. So I think the problem is we hear these things and then they get interpreted outside of a scientific environment in the lay population in a way that serves as a convenient explanation for things we don't understand. And the danger in that is that we've misinterpreted it.
You know, they say that it takes 10 years, a minimum of 10 years for scientific research to be implemented. For us to get a good double-blind research study that changes what we do in holistic or integrative or allopathic medical care, it takes time. And so I think there's two exciting things that are happening. The first exciting thing that research is showing is that our genetics are malleable. Well, hallelujah for that. It means that we have impact on our genetic expression. That's amazing. That means our stress level, our food, what we do in our daily life can affect. And this is not to blame anybody who has an autoimmune condition. This means we might be able to improve it. How far can that go? I take more time in my practice taking people off gluten and dairy than anything else. Now, am I doing that because I just enjoy that? I'm doing that because I'm seeing a positive effect. Well, why is that happening? Mm-hmm. I don't have the answer. I know that the gluten in this country is very different than the gluten in Europe. I know that people who can't eat gluten here can eat gluten there. So I'm paying attention to that. Mm-hmm. So it's huge.
What's tremendously important here is asking the individual to diarize their symptoms. That's what I find tremendously helpful. Most of the time, within half an hour to 45 minutes, a person will experience that gas or bloating from the time they've ingested whatever food. So it is critical to keep a diary. I agree that a lot of what we do is, in fact, not based on randomized clinical trials. But I also know that people's bodies speak to them. Mm-hmm. My job as a GP is to try to translate that into a language that they can understand and use in a practical, daily living way.
All right, let me interject for just 1 second because I'm in the business of revealing a lot about myself today, but I often joke that my stomach is made of Teflon, okay? So I could probably go to a Mandarin buffet, eat all the fried foods, and I would feel okay, where my husband would be curled over in pain for days. So I wonder, to what extent is my body not speaking to me? Or am I less healthy than him? I mean, what's going on?
So this is a conversation I have with patients all the time. Who is the sick person? The person whose body actually sends them a signal to stop eating toxic food. You know, you go to Mandarin, people have piles of deep fried food and seem fine and they walk out. Is that sickness or is that health?
I don't know.
You know, in my view, the irritable bowel individual who does that and walks out doubled over is actually at an advantage because they're not going to be eating that way. They've learned to listen to their body and they're going to change what they do. And in fact, it's going to be very much for the better.
I would flip that and say, to what extent is your body listening to you? So if you're going in there calm, you're not worried about what you're going to eat, you're going to tolerate this because you have a stomach made of Teflon, what role does that play in the lack of development of symptoms? And I bring that up because, again, yes, science takes a long time to catch up. But for example, there was a Canadian guideline that came out a few years ago looking at treatment of IBS, of irritable bowel syndrome. But when you look at that guideline, what didn't make it for managing IBS was diet. What did make it was cognitive behavioral therapy. So that doesn't mean diet doesn't work, and I'm not saying that because I agree with you that there's absolutely a correlation between some people's symptoms and certain dietary triggers. But what it does say is even when you look at conventional Western data, the data to support cognitive behavioral therapy, meaning focusing on your approach and attitudes to food, symptoms, and lifestyle, had more of an impact in more studies that were more robust with larger patient populations than even diet in managing GI symptoms.
I'll get your reaction after the break, Dr. Joy, because I know you want to jump in, but stick around, we'll be right back.